The morning was heavy with warm air, and Nuru walked into the kitchen holding a cup of spiced tea. She had a small joke ready, something silly about Selim's habit of hiding the last mango. He smiled before she even finished it. The courtyard outside was full of noise, a radio playing an old song while children argued over marbles. Everything felt normal and easy for one short moment. Then Mama Hawa spoke. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't even look angry. She simply said, like placing a plate on the table, "She has no worth." The words dropped into the room so quickly that the noise around them seemed to fade. Nuru's laugh cut off in the middle, turning into a sharp breath she tried to hide. Her face warmed. She forced a small, bright ha-ha and kept pouring tea as if nothing had happened, though her hands shook slightly. The guests went still. A few eyes lowered. Someone coughed. Selim's smile fell away and he held his mug with both hands, gripping it hard as if steadying himself. His jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. Nuru felt the moment press into her chest. She kept her eyes on the cups, focusing on the rising steam. Inside, something thin cracked, the way a line appears in a mirror before anyone notices. It was small, almost invisible, but real. The kitchen looked the same as always, but breakfast had changed. A simple morning joke had collided with a quiet insult, and the sting of it settled deep, marking the beginning of something she could no longer ignore. After that morning, life in the house changed in small, tiring ways. Nothing dramatic, nothing loud, just tiny cuts that kept coming. Mama Hawa acted sweet in front of others, but her comments slipped in like little pins. One day she said Nuru's dress looked too simple. Another day she asked if Nuru's family even taught her how to fold laundry properly. She smiled while saying these things, as if she was helping, but the words stung every time. Nuru tried to laugh them off, a quick shaky sound, but inside she felt each remark settle like dust she could never sweep away. At the market in Azali, the changes spread. Neighbors who once called her by name now looked away or saved their smiles for others. When seats opened, no one offered her one. A little child, copying adults without understanding, repeated the awful phrase she had heard at home. "She has no worth." The words came out in a sing-song voice. Nuru froze for a moment, then let out a short, brittle giggle she quickly hid with a cough. Her cheeks burned. She kept walking, pretending she didn't care, though her heart felt small and tight. Selim tried to make things lighter. He cracked little jokes, teased her gently, tried to pull her into laughter. Sometimes it worked for a second. Other times his jokes faded halfway, turning into silence because he didn't know how to fix what he saw in her eyes. He hated the tension growing between his mother and the woman he loved, but he didn't know where to place his words without setting off a storm. Nuru kept herself busy. She sewed late into the night, letting the steady rhythm of the needle calm her thoughts. Coins were stacked beside her, tiny towers of hope she counted again and again. She whispered speeches into a cracked mirror, practicing how to speak with confidence even if she didn't feel it yet. Some nights she stopped mid-sentence and let out a soft cry she covered with her shawl. No one heard her. No one saw the small shivers in her shoulders as she wiped her face and forced herself back to work. Every day felt like walking through a field full of thorns. One comment here, one strange look there, one careless whisper floating by her ear. Mama Hawa's voice followed her in her mind, sharp and smooth at the same time. Even the simplest tasks, hanging laundry, preparing rice, visiting the shop, brought new chances for someone to remind her she was being judged. Little by little, the weight grew. It didn't fall on her all at once. It pressed gently, then a little harder, then harder still, until she felt her back curve under it. The life she thought was steady began to tilt. Her smile appeared less often, and when it did, it stayed only for a second. But beneath all that pressure, something else quietly formed. A question, a spark, a thought that maybe this wasn't the life she had to accept. The small wounds hurt, yes, but they also pushed her toward a deeper truth. She would need to stand up one day, and she would need to do it with her own hands, in her own voice, no matter how many cracks she had to heal first. Nuru started thinking about change in the quiet moments, the ones no one paid attention to. While sweeping the courtyard or waiting for water to boil, her mind drifted toward the future she kept hidden from everyone. At Selim's office on Tana Ridge, she heard about an opening at a local NGO that worked with village schools. It wasn't a big job, just a mid-level coordinator role, but it felt like a door she wasn't sure she was allowed to touch. Still, one afternoon she sat at a small desk, breathing fast, and filled out the application between her chores. She typed slowly, choosing each word with care, afraid she might make a mistake but more afraid of doing nothing. When she hit send, her hands shook a little, not from fear but from a strange mix of hope and disbelief. A week later, she received an email inviting her for an interview. She opened it in the middle of folding clothes and let out a loud, surprised ha-ha that echoed off the walls. For a moment she forgot everything. Mama Hawa's comments, the heavy silence, the long days of doubt. She pressed a hand over her mouth, smiling like someone who had just uncovered a treasure. She printed the letter, folded it neatly, slid it into her bag, and carried the secret close to her chest. She wasn't ready to tell anyone yet, not until she felt steady. Preparing for the interview became its own little world. She stayed up late practicing answers, whispering them while stirring porridge so the words would feel natural in her mouth. She watched videos on her old phone about confidence and leadership, nodding along even when her eyes grew tired. Her cracked mirror became her teacher. She stood in front of it repeating phrases, fixing her posture, smoothing her breath. Sometimes she caught her reflection looking back with a softness she hadn't seen in months, as if her own face was cheering her on. The community noticed in small, gentle ways. Her old neighbor, who had seen her grow up, dropped by with clean sheets of stationery and said she had extras. She placed them on the table with a smile that said, "I know something is happening and I'm proud." Her cousin arrived one evening carrying a simple but well-kept suit in the perfect shade of blue. "This will look good on you," he said, not asking questions, not pushing for explanations. These small acts felt like warm hands on her back, steadying her. Even the tailor down the road offered to adjust the sleeves for free when he heard she needed them for something important. Nuru walked home with the suit wrapped carefully in paper, her steps lighter than usual. In the house, she kept her preparations quiet. She didn't want to give anyone a chance to steal the joy before it fully formed. Ambition felt fragile here, like a young plant that needed to be protected from too much attention. She worked in corners, in late hours, in pauses between chores. Each moment was a reminder that growth often begins in silence. And as the days passed, her small private hope grew stronger, ready to push against everything that once made her feel small. That morning began like any other, with sunlight slipping through the curtains and Mama Hawa sweeping the hallway with quick practice strokes. She moved from room to room, humming under her breath, until she reached Selim's small desk. His laptop was open, still glowing from the night before. She didn't plan to snoop, but then a notification appeared in the corner of the screen. Her eyes caught the first few words before she even thought to look away. It was a message from Selim's team. "Congratulations to Nuru, our new program coordinator." Another message followed. Then another. Each one praising Nuru, celebrating her, calling her by a title that sounded official and important. Mama Hawa froze, broom halfway in the air. She leaned closer, reading the lines again and again. For a moment, her face softened with surprise, but the softness didn't last. Instead of walking to Nuru and asking about it calmly, she let her eyes flicker with something sharper. She took screenshots quickly, her fingers moving fast, almost eager. She didn't read the full emails, didn't look for context, didn't stop to breathe. She only read enough to feed her doubt. First, she sent a screenshot to her sister with a short line. "Look at this." Then, before her sister even replied, she typed out a message for the extended family group chat. She didn't write much, just one small, pointed question. Why did he hire her? The words were simple but loaded. Within seconds, the chat came alive. Messages flew back and forth like tiny whispers running through a crowded room. Some pretended to be confused, Others pretended to be concerned. A few added little laughing emojis that stung more than any insult. In the kitchen, Nuru was stirring tea, unaware of the storm gathering outside her quiet morning. Selim walked in a few minutes later, wiping sweat from his forehead after fixing a loose gate in the yard. As he placed his tools down, his phone buzzed once, then again, then nonstop. He frowned, picked it up, and scrolled. His expression changed slowly, shifting from confusion to shock, then settling into a calm so tight it looked like it hurt. He stood still for a long moment, reading each message carefully. He saw the screenshots. He saw the questions. He understood exactly what had happened. The private joy Nuru had protected, the small hope she had tucked away in her bag, was now being passed around like gossip. Something meant to be hers alone had been tossed into the family circle without care, without permission. Selim closed his eyes, breathing in through his nose. The house felt different now, heavier. He looked toward the doorway where Mama Hawa had stood earlier, and a quiet sadness settled on his face. He knew careless words could spread faster than truth, but watching it unfold like this still stung. This moment, the moment a congratulatory email meant for celebration turned into fuel for criticism, became the line between private and public. It was the hinge that shifted everything. Something simple had escaped the safety of silence, and now the whole family was watching, whispering, judging. And none of them knew that Nuru hadn't even told her own husband the full news yet. Selim didn't shout the way some sons might. He didn't throw his phone, and he didn't rush into the kitchen with anger spilling out of him. Instead, he walked straight to the courtyard where Mama Hawa was sorting vegetables. His steps were steady, but there was something tight in the air around him. He pulled up a chair and sat down beside her. She looked up, expecting small talk, maybe a joke. Instead, he held out his phone and said in a calm, low voice, "Show me the thread." For a second she tried to laugh it off, pretending she didn't know what he meant. But Selim didn't move, didn't blink. His calm was sharper than anger. Her smile faded, and she handed him the phone with stiff fingers. He scrolled through the messages, reading each one again even though he already knew the words by heart. Then he took a printed paper from his pocket, the real offer letter. He placed it gently on the table between them. Next, he opened his email and showed her the recommendation letters from teachers, coordinators, and even the NGO director. Each one talked about Nuru's work, her dedication, her long nights helping with reports and lesson plans. At first, Mama Hawa looked amused, as if all this paperwork was unnecessary drama. But as she read line after line, her body changed. Her shoulders pulled back, her hands trembled slightly. Confusion rose on her face, then a small, tight panic. These weren't favors. These weren't pity compliments. These were facts. Real proof of effort she had never bothered to ask about. Selim asked her simple questions, the kind that cut deeper because there was no place to hide behind them. "Did you read the work Nuru did?" She shook her head. "Did you ask even one person who works with her?" Again, she said nothing. Her eyes lowered. "Did you think before sending that message?" Silence stretched between them like a long shadow. By now the household had gone quiet. A few relatives stood near the doorway, pretending to dust shelves while listening closely. Even neighbors passing by slowed near the gate, curious about the unusual stillness. Word spread fast, and soon a small crowd gathered outside. Someone whispered, "It's about the job." Another murmured, "He has proof." The courtyard felt like a stage, and the truth was finally being spoken aloud. A small ant who had repeated Mama Hawa's earlier comments let out a soft awe, the kind that carries regret. A younger cousin who had laughed in the group chat now snorted, then went silent as the seriousness of the moment settled in. All of them watched Nuru from the corner of their eyes. She stood near the wall, hands clasped tightly, unsure whether to step forward or disappear. The sting of being judged washed over her again, but this time it was mixed with something else. The relief of finally being seen clearly. Selim lifted the offer letter again and said quietly, "This is real, she earned this." His voice didn't shake, It didn't rise, it simply carried truth, straightforward and undeniable. What made the moment powerful wasn't the confrontation itself. It was the shift, when pride had to step aside because the facts were too clear to ignore. When a mother had to face the truth that the girl she dismissed had built something with her own strength. When the household and the neighbors finally saw that the story they believed was wrong. And when Nuru realized that this time, she wasn't standing alone. Word traveled through the village faster than anyone expected. At first it was just a few quiet comments at the well, then murmurs in the market, then soft whispers outside shop doors. People said Nuru's name differently now. It no longer carried pity or doubt. It came with a small rise of surprise, a lift of respect, as if they were seeing her clearly for the first time. Someone who once smiled at her out of habit now smiled with real warmth. Someone who used to overlook her stopped and asked, "Is it true? You're the new coordinator." And when she nodded, their eyebrows lifted with genuine admiration. At the clinic in Mako village, the director called her one afternoon. His tone was polite, almost excited. He asked if she could run a workshop for young mothers about early learning. Nuru held the phone to her ear and blinked, surprised he had reached out to her directly. A week later at the school, she explained budgeting for classroom supplies to a group of parents. They listened closely, nodding along, asking questions. No one talked over her. No one looked past her. Even the head teacher whispered to another teacher, "She's good." Each small success drifted back to the family compound like gentle rain, not loud, not dramatic, just steady. People mentioned her name in passing, praising her openly without checking if Mama Hawa approved. And that unsettled the older woman more than any argument ever could. For years, she had shaped the family's reputation with her opinions. Now people were forming their own based on Nuru's work alone. Nuru didn't brag. She didn't change the way she walked or spoke. She stayed careful and humble, focusing on her tasks, finishing reports on time, helping teachers fill forms, preparing lesson materials. When she was handed a microphone at a community meeting, she didn't rush or falter. She spoke slowly, clearly, like someone who understood every word she was saying and had earned the right to say it. Her voice had a calm confidence that made people turn toward her. When she finished, the applause wasn't loud, but it was sincere. A few claps here, a few there, then more joining in naturally. A neighbor even laughed softly in delight, amazed at how easily the village had shifted its view of her. Back at home, Mama Hawa felt the shift too. She heard the praise from women at the gate, from vendors in the market, from visitors who came to borrow sugar or return a pot. And none of it came through her. The respect bypassed her completely, landing straight on Nuru. She didn't know what to do with that feeling. Pride mixed with discomfort, confusion mixed with quiet guilt. Nuru didn't try to prove anything. She simply showed up, did her work, and let the results speak. That was her quiet revenge. Not anger, not loud victories, just competence, consistent, patient, undeniable. Each achievement answered the insults she once swallowed. Every small win rewrote the old story. Bit by bit, the village understood something simple. Skill doesn't need permission to shine. It shines because it's real, and no one could take that away from her anymore. The day of Nuru's small celebration arrived quietly, without decorations or loud music. It was just a simple gathering in the courtyard. A few neighbors, some cousins, and a tray of sweet tea. People came with shy smiles, congratulating her one by one. Nuru tried to stay calm, though her heart felt warm in a way she hadn't allowed herself to feel for a long time. She was laughing with a group of children when the gate opened again, slowly, as if the person behind it wasn't sure they should enter. It was Mama Hawa. She held a pot of night stew in both hands, gripping it tightly. She looked older than she had a few weeks ago, as if her pride had folded into quiet lines on her face. She walked toward Nuru with small steps, stopping just a few feet away. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The courtyard went still. Even the children sensed something delicate was happening. Mama Hawa cleared her throat. When she spoke, her voice didn't have its usual sharpness. It was softer, almost shaky. She said she brought the stew because she remembered it was Nyuru's favorite. She added that she had been thinking a lot. She talked about pride, about fear, about wanting the best for her son but not understanding the woman he chose. She tried to continue, but her voice cracked, and she had to look down. It surprised Nyuru to hear such soft weeping behind those words. The woman who once dismissed her now stood with trembling hands, trying to make something right. Nyuru didn't know what to say. She had imagined apologies before, but never like this. Never so human, so unsure, so raw. She stepped forward and took the pot from Mama Hawa's hands, not because she knew how to forgive instantly, but because she understood this moment mattered. This was an apology shaped in actions, not speeches. Selim stood nearby with his arms crossed loosely. He looked steady, almost like he was holding the whole scene together. When his mother finally whispered, "I should have asked before I judged," he let out a laugh of pure relief. It wasn't loud. It was soft and broken, the kind that comes when a tight knot inside someone finally loosens. His eyes filled with tears as he pulled both women gently toward him. Around them, the compound shifted in small ways. A cousin who once repeated Mama Hawa's harsh comments now told her friend, "Nyuru is leading a new program next month." A neighbor who had ignored Nyuru before now spoke proudly about the workshop she ran at the clinic. The same people who once whispered doubts now shared stories of her calm, steady leadership. Apology didn't erase the hurt, but it planted something new, room for healing. And it didn't arrive in grand speeches or perfect words. It came in a pot of night stew, in shaky breaths, in a mother finally admitting she had been wrong. It came through tears caught quickly, through quiet nods, through the simple act of showing up. It was humility in its plainest, truest form. And in that moment, it was enough to begin again. Months later, the early sun warmed Zari Square as Nyuru unlocked the door of the small community office she now managed. The place still smelled of new paint and fresh paper, and every time she stepped inside, she felt a tiny flutter in her chest. Selim leaned against the doorway, watching her with his easy grin. He had a few silly jokes ready, the kind that always made her laugh until her eyes watered. Their mornings had become lighter, gentler, as if the hard days behind them had cleared space for something better. As she arranged papers on the counter, Mama Hawa walked by on her way to the market. She slowed down when she saw Nyuru inside. For a moment she stood at the entrance, holding her basket, her face unreadable. Then she took a long breath and stepped in, not rushing, not pretending. She asked if she could help make tea or check the guest list for upcoming meetings. She didn't correct a single sentence. She listened when Nyuru spoke, nodding with care. The change was small but real, like a door opening by just an inch but opening all the same. A visitor came in holding a new congratulatory letter. He placed it on the counter with a smile. Mama Hawa reached for it gently, her hands trembling before slowly steadying. She read the words out loud, her voice soft but sure, carrying pride and humility together. A few neighbors nearby let out little awe sounds. A child outside laughed a bright ha-ha at one of Selim's jokes drifting through the window. Nyuru stood there watching all of it, her heart full. Her smile was soft and tired and strong. She gathered her team, ready to start the day, knowing that simple facts, one salary slip, one letter, one truth, had changed her entire household. Not with drama, but with steady, honest work that spoke louder than anything else.